All right, people. I think we are online and ready to go. And that means we are going to start talking about Mutant Year Zero. An absolutely wonderful RPG system. I'm a big fan of it. I think it's one of the best for real survival horror because it understands what that genre is, why it is, and what draws us to it. And it's just a beautiful post-apocalypse. Everything's done. I'm a huge fan, a huge fan. So I'm using it for Dungeon 23 this year, and that means we need to talk about it a little bit. So, this is the beginning of the series, Mutant Year Zero, Introduction and Characters. The world moved fast once. A buzz with people and machines. Then the oceans rose and fell. The Red Plague hit. Bombs flew and bigger things too. Now everything is still. Yet life remains. Slivers of humanity and other things too. In the Ark live the people. Spawn of humanity but different. Unstable. Fragile. None of them over 30 years old. Except the Elder. Their leader, but not like them, an ancient. For years he warned the people, be on guard, don't leave the Ark, the rot will get you, or something worse out there in the zone. But now the food runs short. The fight for survival begins and the people venture forth. They explore the zone for artifacts and knowledge. They seek the Eden of legend, the ancients' haven. Maybe they'll even find it. That is the beginning of the first page of the Mutant Year Zero book, and it really outlines what this system's really about. It's a post-apocalypse. The world ended from many different things, and but life reigns. There is still things out there. There's a lot of big weird, capital letter words: Ark, Elder, people, zone. But that's just because of being in a post-apocalypse. You're missing knowledge. You're missing why people are really here. So yeah, this just kind of lays it out. The Ark was a beautiful place. It was a place for survival for these mutants and their elder raising them, but time wears away all things, and especially in a post-apocalypse, eventually everything runs out. So, in Mutant Year Zero, what do your characters do? What's the gameplay like? What is the game cycle? You're going to fight for grub, water, and bullets. You're going to take part in the projects. You're going to protect the Ark, protect your own, explore the zone, search for Eden, and hopefully survive. So that's the whole real idea here. I don't know if I am actually streaming. This is going to be really sad if I'm not, because I'm going to have to do this whole thing over again. But seeing as I can't see it, well, I'm just going to go for it, and we will see what happens. Yeah, I'm just gonna send a text off here real quick. This whole thing over again. Oh, there we go. Okay. Don't need to talk. Oh, thank God. Okay, now I can see you people. Jesus. Yeah. Sorry, I missed chat, so I will reply to my friend Zach here really quick. Yeah, so this is obviously right after the OGL 1.1 leak, which for those of you in the know in the tabletop role-playing game world is kind of a big deal. It's possibly going to destroy... I don't know if it's going to destroy the hobby as we know it. I don't actually believe that. I do believe this is going to go one of two ways. Either the big companies that it's threatening, Paizo, Kobold Press, are either going to sue, and it's going to be, wrought out in the courts for 3 or 4 years, and then finally work itself out, and all those old products will be fine. Or they're not, and they're all just going to pivot and say, "Fuck it." So I don't know. It's one of the two. I'm not really certain. I'm just kind of, honestly, I'm just kind of rolling with it. I honestly have no idea how this is gonna roll out. But yes, so I am starting talking about a non Wizards of the Coast product right after that. That honestly, I did know about 1.1 when I began planning this, but it wasn't the intention. It really was just this Dungeon 23 thing really kind of pushing me is the best way that I would put it. And this is something that I really like to talk about. I think this is a fun system, and I wish more people were running it. And I think it's great for those designers who like to do, like Dungeon 23, a little bit every day. So, back to your Mutant Year Zero and your characters. So you have, it is a skill-based game, so you have 4 attributes, and there are 14 skills. You'll get 14 points for attributes, although I will say here, I think that's stupid. All of your attributes start at 0. They could have, but none of them are allowed to be at 0. So really you have 10 and all of them start at 1, but whatever. Frederica, do you think this will affect your plans for publishing Pot of Conquerors? Yes. I'm not going to, I might rewrite it. I will explore options like Pathfinder 2nd Edition or some of the old school Renaissance games. I actually just downloaded a Bundle of Holding, did a great deal on a whole bunch of non-OGL based old school Renaissance games. So yeah, Pot of Conquerors is not going to be published for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. I will say that straight out. But one of the wonderful things about it is that it is, in many ways it's not required for that system. I think that 5th edition makes it better because of ideas like bounded accuracy. And I think because of that, we are going to see, I don't know where my brain was going there for a second, but so yes, my intention is still to publish it, but probably just not for 5th edition. I don't think that is in the cards. I'm probably going to move away from D&D. Am I going to throw all those books away? No, I don't believe in that. There are still cool ideas to pull from them. I will still utilize so many concepts from Dungeons and Dragons in other things that I do, other writing that I do, and other thoughts that I have. I believe that every system has something to contribute, and that'll actually probably come up in a couple months. I'm planning a video on a terrible system called Terror 13. It is a tiny book published in the 90s, and it looks horrific. So I think there's something to be gained from all of these systems, old, new, OGL, non-OGL, and the best dungeon masters, the best writers, the best everything steal from all things, not just the things that everybody is comfortable with or that the current cultural zeitgeist is comfortable with. So, 4 attributes, 13 skills, 14 points for attributes, 10 for skills. All of your skills also start at 0. But because there are only 4 attributes, you're going to have some points in each of them. They're not allowed to be at 0. Those attributes are strength, agility, wits, and empathy. Pretty standard strength, bodily strength, pretty obvious. Agility, everything finer, but also includes movement. Wits, obviously the thought processes that you have, as well as kind of knowledge. Everything mental that's not social is kind of wrapped up in wits. And then empathy is everything social wise. Zach, we can create our own system. No. I have been working on one for years now, and I'll say that here. It is it is straight up is Mass Effect with the serial numbers filed off. Am I interested in actually creating that and publishing it? Yeah, I am. Do I have the time? No. But maybe this channel can become big enough and I can. Maybe then I can really be a creator. So if you want me to make my own system and possibly incorporate other people's thoughts, ideas, and such, then you should talk about me to your friends and get them watching. Get me making money off this and I can quit my day job. So, anywho, these attributes, they're all really equally important. I know I said, 2 physical, 1 mental, 1 social, but because of something we're going to talk about in a second, they are all very, very important in the functioning of the game and why you need to have people really with increases in each of them. Just spending those 10 points, put 14 points, put 5, 5, 3, and 1. You're gonna die. It's a bad time. I'll say straight out, characters with a 1 in anything are gonna have a bad time because they have an easy weakness to exploit, and that is absolutely something that characters and antagonists should all be doing, is exploiting weaknesses in this game. So what are the skills? Skills are endure, force, fight, sneak, move, shoot, scout, comprehend, know the zone, sense emotion, manipulate, and heal. Now, like I said, all of these are important. Most of them are relatively self-explanatory. Endure is, taking hits, not exactly, but, putting up with bitter cold and heat and enduring a challenge. Force is forcing things. Think to old school D&D, bend bars and lift gates. Fight, pretty obvious fighting, and melee fighting. Sneak, the best way to not get hit is to not be seen. Move is anything that incorporates movement, especially that I would put it. So like if you need to balance on a narrow ledge, I would probably call that a move roll. If you need to run really fast and to get across something, I would probably call that a move roll. So move can incorporate, if you need to get through a marsh, and you're having to lift your legs way above hip height just to be able to get through this deep muck, I would call that move. Shoot, pretty obvious. Ranged combat. Scout, seeing things before they see you. We could call this a perception roll, pretty standard. Comprehend, know what something is. You look at something and you're like, I don't know. This is a post-apocalyptic game, so knowing what something actually is not as simple as just staring at it and making sense of it. Know the zone, knowing about various threats, phenomenon, things that you will see out in the world, but specifically about the zone itself, not just objects. Sense emotion, pretty obvious. Describes itself very well. Manipulate, very much the contrary. We're sensing how we people are. Now we are changing how people are. And then heal, also relatively obvious. It is not actually used to heal yourself. We'll talk about that in a second. So you also have a role, and this is very important. There are a total of 8 roles in this game, and they very much define your character in a very clear way. You have these attributes, you have these skills, and those are important. And what points you have in those are obviously important because they're going to reflect in what you're able to do. But your roles reflect how people think of you and how, if you see someone who is a certain role, they know, you can pretty much tell what role someone has just by looking at them. So the roles are Enforcer, Gearhead, Stalker, Fixer, Dog Handler for our beast-loving people out there, Chronicler, Boss, and Slave. I'm going to go through each of these. I'm going to have a page on each one, talk a little bit about them, what makes them unique. But first, I just want to talk about what these roles actually entail. So each of them comes with a unique skill. So you cannot have this skill if you are not this role. There is no way to get 2 roles in this game, so there is no way to get any more of these unique skills. So a party, let's say just 5 people, there's going to be 3 unique skills that you are missing out on. Now, none of these are necessary, I would say. I don't think there's anything in this game where if you don't have this, you're screwed. Except maybe Stalker if you're planning to go out into the zone, but you could, to a point, make a game of Mutant Year Zero where you never go out into the zone. So, and you could function without a Stalker. It's a lot easier with them. So, but yeah, that's really the thing, is everything is just a lot easier with these particular roles in your party, in your group. But in the Ark, you're gonna have each of these roles somewhere. You're gonna have bosses and enforcers and stalkers and dog handlers and everything else in between. So let's head on down the line. Enforcer. The Enforcer is strength-based. I didn't mention they are all based on a particular attribute, and that determines not just the attribute for the skill, for their unique skill, but also they can have that attribute at 4 or 5, I don't remember, I think, at 5 at the beginning of the game. So Enforcers, for instance, could not have agility, wits, or empathy at 5 at the beginning of the game. So the Enforcer's unique skill is Intimidate. They can, without even throwing their fists, without doing anything actually violent, can get people to back down. The wonderful thing about social combat in this game is it is not just vital, it is important. Without social combat, everything is combat, and combat is deadly and bad. So if you can avoid it, you want to. And roles like the Enforcer, being able to make your opponent back down, is huge. So Intimidate is a great skill to have in a party, and they're just a big hulk of a beast. The Gearhead. Gearhead is wits-based, and they have jury-rig. They can make scrap items. So Gearheads are basically hoarders, but the main thing about them is that they can take random scrap out in the zone and make rifles and axes and swords and rafts and armor and shields and just all kinds of things that are useful, but not just useful for combat. Let's say that you are in, on a river. Well, you can't swim that river. That river is filled with rot. It is just, real bad time, and probably filled with dangerous fishies and things like that. A Gearhead could make you a boat, or at least a raft. And so that jury-rig skill is very vital when you just need something to figure out a solution to a problem. The Stalker, like I mentioned earlier, probably of the 8, the only one that I would maybe say is vital. I personally don't think that I would want a party of players without a Stalker in it. I think it's just a good idea. Stalker is agility-based, and their skill is Find the Path. Find the Path allows you to get into a sector in the zone. We'll explain what some of these terms mean in greater context in a later video, but basically the zone is these areas. Well, in those areas are threats and artifacts and all things like that. Find the Path allows you to see that threat before it sees you. Very vital. It also allows you to find the artifacts and bullets and clean water and just all these things out in the zone. And that's really important when you're actually out there. And they're just stealthy and creepy little bastards. All the pictures of them, by the way, are in gas masks or something else covering their face. They're creepy little bastards. The Fixer is empathy-based, and he is a little wheeler and dealer. His skill is make a deal, and that's their whole thing. They can exchange stuff for stuff, but because they are empathy-based, they are probably the key part of this game at that social combat. You know, you can intimidate, that's useful, but intimidate will always lead to one of two things. Either the opposing party backs down or they immediately start combat. Empathy-based people could maybe avoid that a little bit, you know? Maybe they can figure out a way to say, hey, we got something you want, you've got something we want. We can just make a little deal here, and that's what the Fixer does. So Fixer is very, very, very useful when you need it, and being able to basically trade the three main resources in this game, which are bullets, water, and grub. And then obviously there's other stuff, but that's a big part of it. You know, means that they can get you out of a fix. Maybe you're low on grub and being out of food is kind of a problem. Well, the Fixer can, you know, make a deal and figure some way out of that. Next up, the Dog Handler, as mentioned earlier. I would probably, if I was running this game, I would allow that to not be a dog if you want it to not be a dog, but it should be a dog. I mean, come on, like, it's definitively a man's best friend sort of thing. They are agility-based, and their skill is sick a dog. The dog actually has a defined strength and agility, and it's probably higher than yours. And that means that rather than you having to do something, you can give your dog instructions to do it for you instead. I don't remember. I wish I had looked this up better, but I believe there is some sort of thing where if the dog dies, or is seriously injured, then you know, bad things can happen to that dog handler. But I actually don't remember. Really, it's just, yeah, but the idea is, you know, you've basically got another member of the party, doesn't have wits, doesn't have empathy, just has strength and agility, but they can at least do something. The Chronicler. Chronicler is probably the most important in the way we think of the game, because they are the one who has the, at least in the meta of the game. I don't know if this is really reflected in their unique skill per se, to my opinion, but their whole thing is they write down what's happening. That's just so important to me. And really to the lore of the game, the meta plot of the game is this, you know, this person who writes things down and says, you know, on this day that thing happened. And that's just so vital when we think about a post-apocalyptic society. Their skill is Inspire. Inspire is nice. It is. It's good. It allows you to make other people's roles better. So you really are a support class. And they are empathy-based, you know, so they do have that social combat we talked about. And that is, it's huge, you know. Personally, I don't know how well their unique skill really stands up to the fantasy of what the Chronicler can be. Next, the Boss. Bosses are wits-based. Their skill is Command, because they literally have a team of people behind them. This is probably the role that I would limit players on, actually. Because it literally comes with 20 or 30 people who are your posse. They are your buds. And, you know, having now, obviously, like, are you going to have 20 or 30 people in every combat? No, but the boss's skill is Command. That's their whole thing, is they tell people to do things, and in general, they do them. Now, is there an argument for this being a great thing for a great game master would be able to take this and say, okay, sure, you've got these group of people, but they're not mindless machines who are going to obey your every order. They're not robots. Piss them off, face the consequences. And that's, now we're really like pushing the envelope a little bit. And I think that's the way that I would probably treat them if this was a player character. Is, there would be actions that they like, that they don't like, and the boss would know that. The boss would kind of know the general demeanor of their troops, quote unquote. Yeah. And the last one, the slave. I did not have a witty thing to say for this. I probably could have pulled something from like some inspirational quote from Stargate SG-1 or something like that, like something a Jaffa said. I didn't have it in me. Slave is hard. It's tough. Like, the entire idea is that you are owned by someone else, probably a boss. I would make sure that your players understand how this is going to play out. Now maybe you're freed. I don't know. I'm just saying it's kind of a thing. Their skill is amazing, though. Their skill, Shake It Off, allows you to actually avoid damage. So I said earlier about Endure, being able to, endure the environment, things like that. Shake It Off allows you to get, shot in the chest and go, and walk away. And that is huge. And they can do that to, I believe, any of their skills. To their attributes, it might only be strength, but I'm not entirely sure. But the slave is, through years and years and years of abuse and, being treated like a slave, they can take it. They can take punishment. And that's pretty cool. So, yeah, that is your 8 rolls. So, how do we roll? ROLL. Ha ha ha. How do we roll? Well, we're going to take a dice pool equal to your ratings in your attribute and the skill. So let's say you want to roll move. Well, move is agility based. So you're going to take a number of d6s based on agility and a number of d6s based on move and roll them. And you're going to look for 6s. So with a die pool of 6, you have a pretty good chance of succeeding. Because you only need 1 6 to succeed, 1 success to succeed at any task, no matter what, end of story. But if you didn't get any, you don't succeed. Now, here's where this game really, I think, sets itself apart. If you don't, you can push the roll. Now, there are push mechanics in a lot of RPGs out there. I think here it's really, kind of thrown to the limit. Because it is so hard to succeed, you're gonna push more often. So now you get to roll again, except for anything that came up a 1 the first time. So anything 2 through 5, you get to roll again and look for 6s again. But anything that is a 1, when you push, this is oversimplifying things a little bit. We'll talk about that in a second. But anything that came up a 1 will deal you damage. Now, the thing about this game is there is actually proprietary dice to it. It's a thing. It's big now. It's a great way for these companies to make money. I get it. I do. I'm not crazy about it, but I think in this instance it makes a lot of sense. So you have 3 different type of D6s. You have green dice for your skills, yellow dice for your attributes, and blue or black dice for gear. Gear is probably the easiest to, so basically you've got, attribute, skill, and then gear is anything else, so you're probably going to give a gear bonus if you've got a gun, for instance, and you're trying to shoot, things like that, especially if it's a good gun. So gear, if you roll a 1 when you push, the gear begins to break down. All gear has a rating, and that's how many extra dice it adds. Every 1 that you roll whenever you push breaks the gear a little bit and makes it, gets it a little bit closer to breaking down and being not usable at all. For skill dice, there's no downside. You can roll a 1 all you want. Doesn't have any additional weird symbol, nothing special to it. Attribute dice, every 1 that you roll, you take 1 damage. So it hurts. And in this game, 1 damage is a big deal. That's 1 out of probably 15 ish that you can take. And that's a problem. That's 6% of your life, basically, kind of. We'll discuss that in a second. But every 1 that you roll on your attribute dice also gets you a mutation point, which allows you to use your mutation. I'll go back all over this in another video, because we'll probably talk about the whole rolling system, but I just want to go over kind of the basics here. So basically, roll, look for 6s. If you have to push, beware 1s. There you go. So, damage or trauma is what this game calls it, because they do actually separate. Trauma is all damage. Damage is just physical damage. But trauma in this game is physical. It's mental. It's spiritual. It's emotional. It all hurts. So what can hurt you? Well, pushing rolls, for one. Like I said, rolling 1s on attribute dice when you push, that's damage, and you actually get to decide where to assign it, because it's actually trauma. It's not damage, it's trauma. Damage, getting injured in a fight. That's damage. That's actually what this game calls damage. The environment, hot, cold, the rot, which is basically a pseudo radiation. Social combat actually deals trauma to you. Now, can you get it back pretty easily? Yes. But negotiation and social combat is how you force, not just your players, but your players force NPCs to do certain things. So it's really very, 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 very vital. And pretty much anything else. Like, this game is all about hurting you, because damage affects your attributes. Okay, or trauma. Trauma affects your attributes. I really need to get better at watching those wordings. So trauma affects your attributes. Damage affects your strength. But trauma, you take 1 damage and lower that attribute by 1. Okay, so let's say you're trying to roll an agility shoot roll, all right, to shoot somebody. Well, just before that, he called your mother a whore, and you lost... I guess you wouldn't lose agility from that. For some reason, you've taken agility damage. Well, now you're rolling 4 dice instead of 5, and it's a bad time. It's a death spiral. And this is absolutely a game that is all about that sort of thing, because everything is designed to wear your mutant down. Okay? The damage system, the combat, the ever-present danger, the environment itself. Everything is meant to wear you down, because it lowers your attributes, which makes your rolls lower, which makes your chance of success lower, and it just goes from there. It is a bad time to be a mutant. But that's the point. It's post-apocalypse. If life was easy, anybody could do it. So, how do you fix that? Well, it depends. Strength, you need to eat. You need grub. You need to eat food, preferably rot-free, because rot also deals trauma and wears you down. But, hey, if you eat food with rot in it, maybe you can just put that damage over to empathy instead of strength. Agility needs water. Same thing. Clean water, always better, but that's hard to find. Water with rot in it, that's going to deal damage to something. Wits, you need sleep. You need a good 8 hours of sleep. This is probably the easiest of them to fix. So wits is probably the one that I would say, if you can take damage from something else, put it towards wits, because at least you can hopefully get a good night's rest. And empathy is interesting. You need emotional connection to another thinking being. I'm actually going to bring up one of the old roles. So dog handler, you can actually get your empathy back as a dog handler from interacting with your dog. It's great. But other mutants that aren't dog handlers, they need to connect with someone on an emotional level. And I think this is one of those wonderful things the game, again, is rewarding you for being the character that it wants you to be. It wants you to connect with your fellow mutants and understand that life sucks, but hey, maybe you'll find Eden. And that's always the thing with this game. It's all about hope. Now, is that hope founded? No, it's absolutely unfounded. But Eden is out there. You know it. Everyone knows it. The Elder tells you all the time. So you just need to go find it. So then you're going to get a talent. Talents are really the way to make your mutant unique. Now, there are 3 or 4 talents for each role that are unique to that role. Obviously, I think the Enforcer has the ability to deal more damage in unarmed hits because their fists are just massive little granite monsters. But yeah, but not all of it. Talents give you bonuses to certain roles, knowledge of skills not listed, just all kinds of stuff. It just gives you a unique thing. And I think that's really the key with these. And you do get more talents down the line, but I think really the thing with talents to note is that it allows, my Enforcer and your Enforcer, even if we have the same strength, agility, wits, and empathy, even if we have the same skill points, we can still always be a little unique with some talents. And they will play differently because of that. But then we get to the truly unique factor, and that is mutations. You're playing mutants. You have a mutation, and that mutation obviously has something interesting about it. Some of them are pretty ridiculous, not gonna lie. One of them allows your mutant to eat rot and not get rot from it. One of them allows you to breathe fire. One of them makes your skin like a reptile. That image way back at the beginning of this whole thing was 3 different mutants, and one of them kind of looks like a fly. Like, they are really mutating, and they're unique and interesting. And this is actually one of the things I really, really like is when you get your mutation, you actually pick a card out of a deck. Now, you can obviously not buy that deck. You can just roll a die. That's fine. I kind of like the card idea, mostly because the cards actually lay them out very well. So you can literally draw a card, and now you, the player, know, oh, cool, I have this thing, and all the information that I need for it is right here on this card. So it's a lot like having spell cards in other system, or ability cards, just anything with it, really lays out like, hey, this is what this is, and it's very easy to look at and notice. So all mutations, they use MP, mutation points. Remember I mentioned earlier when you roll attributes and you push, you get 1s, you take damage, but you get mutation points. And that is big, because these mutations are really genuinely game-breaking, and I'll absolutely say that. They deal damage when you want them to, and the ones that don't deal damage, they can protect you, and a lot of other things in this system are dice based. If you're wearing armor, that armor has a rating, which is a number of dice that you roll to see how well it protects you. These mutations just do the thing that they do. Very few of them incorporate dice at all, and that is huge. One of them I think is mind reading. You can just read minds. You have to spend mutation points, but you can just do it. So there is something that you have to do to really to push. That means you've got to push yourself. You've got to take damage. You've got to do the thing the game wants you to do so that you can do the cool thing that you want to do. So then final kind of bits for character creation is your relationships and your big dream. This is the spark of life, as World of Darkness calls it. This is making your character into a person. It's not just a character on a piece of paper. This is, now this is a real person, is unique and interesting and has things about them. So per each other player character or PC, you have to make a relationship. I really admire Frederica, and Zach is a pain in my ass. There you go. Cool. For some reason or another, whatever your relationship is, you've got to have one for each of the other characters. Then you need to make one of them your buddy. And the buddy is a big deal. When your buddy is injured or dies, it sucks. It hurts. And it's bad time. Then you need to design someone you hate, someone you need to protect. All right. These are people in the arc that are not a player character. And this allows your players, to have some input into making the arc. They make most of the arc anyway, but, the person you hate, the person you need to protect, now each player, are making someone in the arc that is going to affect and change how things progress there. And then you need to make a big dream. And this, again, is, I think, really a key part of this system. This is a game about hope. So each player needs to have a dream. They need to have something big they're really looking for. Other games would call this a long-term goal, but this isn't a goal. This is a dream, something almost unattainable. Find the ark. Find the ark. Find Eden. Make the ark a paradise. Something truly big and huge. And this is what's going to progress your character and push them forward, because this is their big, real, hopeful dream. And then you make the arc, but we'll talk about that next week. So next week, we'll talk about the zone a little bit, what the zone is, how it works. We'll talk about the arc a little bit, what makes it unique, some of the stuff that goes on, and talk about the personal drama of this game. Because the game is not just exploring out in the zone with the threats and the artifacts and all the interesting and weird. It's also the things that happen at the arc while you're gone. The arc has 200 or 300 people, and that means that there's all kinds of personal drama and interesting stories to tell there. So, starting this week, I want to talk about a project that I'm working on. This is something really cool I saw on Reddit. It's called Dungeon 23. It is a huge project, and Zach in the chat, if you're doing it too, you should tell me. I think you should. I think it's really positive, and it's going to push a lot of creators and designers in a way that is wholesome and is not negative when we think of design. So Dungeon 23 is pretty simple. Every day, you make one room in a dungeon, and then every week is one level. Okay, so each level is 7 rooms. It's not a lot. That's actually very, very, very small. I would probably do every 2 if I was making a dungeon, but I'm not. And the idea is that, hey, maybe you miss a day, but you're not missing a lot by doing that. And at the end of the year, you have a 52-level mega dungeon. It's huge. And it's got all these cool, interesting things because you had all of this inspiration throughout the year and you were really focused on this. It's probably 15 minutes of work every day. And I think that's really, really, really amazing. And it's pushing a lot of creators to do some absolutely incredible things. So what did I do? Because I'm weird and could not just, make a dungeon. Nope, I had to make a zone. So a big part of Mutant Year Zero is that it occurs in our world. And that means that the zone that you're exploring where there is the Eden and the Ark and all of these things is an area of our real world today. So I took a picture off of Google Earth of New Orleans. I lived there for a long time, and I think it's a really interesting place. I absolutely loved a post on probably Twitter years ago where I want to say a cartographer or something like that looked at the map of New Orleans, not knowing where it was, and said, "No, this is fake. It's fantasy. Nothing like this would ever happen on Earth." Well, lo and behold. So up top there in the left, I've got a drawing that I'm working on Incarnate. It's a wonderful map making software. It is free if you want it. But there is a paid version, and they They state on their website that when you have a paid version, you are allowed to use any map that you make on there for your own personal financial gain. And that is really, really cool. It means that I can use it for something like this and actually publish it and make money off of it, which is big to me as a designer. So down in the bottom right, that's the real key here. And I'm going to go to the next page. So this is the picture off of Google Earth that I took. So this is a 1:3 ratio shot of New Orleans. It's a little bit smaller than you would normally use in than you would normally use in Mutant Year Zero. Mutant Year Zero encourages you to make a 20:30 map. I made an 11:33. And I just did that by going on Google Earth, kind of getting the area that I wanted approximately, and putting the longitude and latitude overlay on it. And then taking a screenshot of that and cropping out all of the Google Earthy bits and bobs. And so I've got an 11:33 map that I'm going to start making into this incarnate map. And the incarnate map is not going to be perfect, because it's not. This is what the players will see. All the sectors will be labeled, so A1, B26, G4, whatever. It's all there labeled. But the actual dimensions and the exact placement of everything will not be exactly perfect. A, because I don't have the patience for that. And B, because I'm working within a map-making software. And C, because that's not the point. The map that the players get should not be perfect, if they even get a map at all. I'm going to give them one because I want them to kind of understand vaguely where they're going. New Orleans is pretty flat. So, if you're in, B25, you would vaguely see what's in A26, A25, B24, B26, and C25, and you can move diagonally in it, but it's not going to have any features. And it's probably going to have some little, things drawn in the sides and kind of thrown in there. And, over here it says like, here there be dragons, shit like that. So that is, the map, but then I also made a spreadsheet. So I went on to Google Sheets, as you can see here, and I just made an 11:33 grid line, and each of those A's that you can see is each sector that I've worked on so far. And now, okay, so this is where I'll share a little bit of my method here a little bit. Obviously, the idea of Dungeon 23 is you make one room a day. I'm going to make one sector a day, which works out pretty well. So there's 363 sectors, 365 days in a year. Woo, perfect. Now, but I will say, because of what this map is, there's a few bit of sectors that are just not really anything. So A1 through A23 are basically just water, so they are identical. So I made those all in one day. But then after that, I've basically made one a day, other than taking some days to work on things like the map and this spreadsheet and ideas like that. But each of those is a link. It then links to an actual sheet down below. And so when I have a game in this system, I could, or anyone could, click on that link, immediately go to the sector that the players are in, and there is all the information that you need. But we'll start talking about what those sheets look like and, what's in these, some of my design concepts, some of the ideas that I've been utilizing, and all that stuff next week. For right now, homework. Tell me about your mutant. If you were going to make a mutant in Mutant Year Zero, or if you have made a mutant in Mutant Year Zero, tell me about them. I love sort of shit like that. I love players talking about their characters and all the things that go on. But that is about it for this week. Trying to think if I really have anything else to say here. I don't think so. Wow, this has gone on for quite a while. Holy shit snacks. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, that is all that I've got for this week. Next week, we're going to talk about the arc, little personal dramas, and some of the wonderful things to do. And for now, class.